3 reasons why anxiety is good for entrepreneurs and professionals. So believe it or not, anxiety can actually boost your performance and your happiness. Now, I know that sounds crazy because each and every day people are looking for ways to get rid of their anxiety. And I've actually given podcast episodes on how to lower that anxiety. But here's the thing. If you get rid of your anxiety, you'll also be getting rid of a lot of good things that come with anxiety. And those things I'm going to talk about in this podcast. Because here's the thing. Anxiety actually is the thing that keeps us alive. It keeps us performing at a certain level. And if I were to get rid of that, I'd be get rid of your floor. So think about it. If I get rid of your floor, so meaning if I got rid of your standards, if you just stop caring about things, you will find yourself lacking, slacking, and not doing the work that you need to do in order to keep the roof over your head, to keep people in your life happy, to keep you happy. And those are things that we cannot succumb to. So I'm going to talk about these 3 things. And guys, here's the thing, right? Because again, I know every entrepreneur and professional at some point in their career, in some point of their life, they experience anxiety, they experience stress, and they experience overwhelm. And these things can feel so uncomfortable that the only thing that they can think of is getting rid of it. And that's why, honestly, a lot of them come and they see me, right? Someone that is a licensed therapist. And I help them with these things, but I help them in a way that shows them that anxiety, again, is actually not a bad thing. It can actually be your superpower. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this episode. And before I get to the first point, make sure you subscribe to this podcast so you can get more information, tips, and strategies to help you to perform better in your business or your career. So main point number 1 as to why anxiety is really good for you is that anxiety actually increases your focus and your motivation. And I'm going to prove that. So I'm willing to bet there have been a time in college, or there's been a time in your professional life where you had a deadline that was due. So maybe you had a test due tomorrow. Maybe you had a page, let's say an 8-page paper that's due tomorrow, right? Or maybe there's a project that you totally forgot about in terms of your work or your business, and it is due tomorrow. And what ends up happening is that anxiety starts to raise. It goes from a level 1 to a level 10. And because you have this fear of letting people down, because you have this fear of being seen as not as your best, you're wanting to avoid that fear. And the best way for you to avoid that fear is to perform, is to show up and to do the work that you know you need to do. So this may have resulted in you pulling an all-nighter. Now, if you have pulled an all-nighter, I want you to comment below this video and just simply say, yeah, that's me. I've definitely done it myself. There was a time in college where I had 3 8-page papers due within a week, and I didn't start any of them. So I basically had a 24-page paper that I had to do, and I only had a week to do it. Plus, I was a student athlete, so I had to go to practice, I had to go to study hall, I had my classes, and I had a part-time job. So I was very, very busy. So unfortunately, or one could say fortunately, I had to spend several nights that week staying up all night just to get this paper done. And that was something that I've never done before. I've never stayed up all night and then go straight to class, straight to practice. But it's because I never had to. It's because I never had that amount of anxiety on me. But because I had that anxiety, that unimaginable anxiety, I was able to perform at a level that I didn't think I was capable of. And to do that, you have to be able to focus. You have to be able to lock in. I want you also guys to think about it like this too. There have been times where maybe you've been afraid, right? So maybe you thought someone was getting in your house, or you were going down the street and you thought someone was following you, like whatever it was, right? Even if you've been on a roller coaster, there has been some time where you felt fear, where you felt anxiety. And because you had that anxiety and that fear, you wasn't thinking about what happened to you yesterday or what happened to you last week or what someone has said or anything like that. You were focused on one thing, and that one thing was, how do I avoid this harm, this potential harm? You were locked in. And again, this is proof that anxiety, it will help you to increase your level of focus, because when you have that fear, you don't have any extra time to think about other things, right? One could even say this is how old cavemen were back in the day. You know, they had this fear of a saber-toothed tiger or, you know, a bear coming out the bushes and, you know, killing them and all that other stuff. So as a result, they had to be focused on every sound and every piece of movement that they saw in the woods or in the forest or wherever they was. If they didn't have that level of focus, they would lose their life. So as a result, it was necessary for them to stay focused And that's what anxiety will do for you. Now, when it comes to motivation, I want you guys to remember this one thing, and I kind of touched on this. Us as humans, we have two primary levers when it comes to motivation. We're either motivated to move towards pleasure or to move away from pain. Now, with anxiety, there's a lot of pain there. I'll give you an example. If you're listening to this podcast, and maybe you can relate, there may be a chance that you've experienced poverty. If you're someone like me, you definitely know what that feels like. And that is not a fun feeling. It's not fun when your lights are cut off, your water is cut off, or you have to wear some of your old clothes from the previous year because you didn't have enough money to buy clothes for this year. That is not fun. Poverty is not fun. And because I've experienced that at a young age, I for sure knew that I needed to get an education and I needed to learn a skill set to avoid poverty at all costs. That is what motivation looks like. That's what moving away from pain can do for you. So again, I don't want you guys to think that anxiety is all bad. It's not. You can actually channel that anxiety and actually use it as excitement and motivation and focus to actually perform at your highest level. Point number 2 as to why anxiety is actually good for entrepreneurs and professionals is that your anxiety actually shows you what you should be working on. And I'll prove it. If you find yourself feeling anxious when you're recording, if you find yourself feeling anxious when you're giving your price, when you're going through a sales pitch, if you find yourself getting anxious when you're working with other people, these are all signs that you have a weakness in your skill set that needs to be addressed. Now, I want you guys to think about this. Think about how great your life would be if this thing that you struggle with was no longer something that you struggle with. As a matter of fact, imagine what it would be like if being on camera was actually your strength. Imagine what it would feel like if going through your sales pitch and telling people your price and not flinching was a part of your life and it was a strength that you had. What would that do for you? I think that would do a lot for you. And I want you to think of this with any anxiety that you may be feeling. Because here's the thing, you can actually use your anxieties as a roadmap for the skills that you need to improve in. You can use your anxiety as things or problems that you need to fix, that you need to work on. But here's the thing, if you're always avoiding anxiety, you will never know what it is that you need to address. And if you don't know what you need to address, you will always stay stuck. Now, does that sound fun? Does that sound like something that you want? Because here's the thing, you can stay in your comfort zone, but the thing about the comfort zone is that it shrinks. And it keeps shrinking to the point where it's suffocating you. And that comfort zone is no longer comfortable. It's actually very uncomfortable. One may actually call it the dead zone, right? That's not a place that you want to be. Challenge yourself. And what I want you to do, I'm actually going to challenge you guys right now. I want you guys to write down 5 things that you find yourself getting anxious with when it comes to your business, when it comes to your career, or even when it comes to your personal life. I want you guys to write those things down. Then what I want you to do is to prioritize these from 1 to 5, right? 1 being the thing that you don't have the most anxiety about, and 5 being the thing that makes you shake, that gives you the nightmares at night. What I want you to do is to attack the first thing on that list. And when you're attacking the first thing on that list that gives you anxiety, I want you guys to actually attack it on a small scale. So this is something that I've learned from James Clear, and it is very, very helpful. When it comes to initiating a habit, what you want to do is you actually want to ask yourself, in the 5 phases, or if I had to put this habit into 5 phases, what would phase 1 of this habit look like? So I'll give you an example with working out. If phase 5, so the top phase, meaning you're going all out, right? If phase 5 of working out is you doing, let's say, cardio for an hour, let's say doing abs for another 30 minutes, and then lifting weights for another 30 minutes. One may say, 2 hours in the gym, that's a lot. And if I do that, I feel like I'll conquer Mount Rushmore, right? Like, that's a really good day. But let's say you've been missing a few days. Let's say you lack a little motivation. I would then ask you what this phase 1 of your workout would look like. And what you may say is 15 minutes of cardio, 15 minutes of abs, and then 15 minutes of weightlifting. So in total, 45 minutes. And then what you can do is you can scale from that. So with that list that you just created, what you can do is you can ask yourself, what does phase 1 of attacking my fear of being on camera look like? That may be you getting on camera for just 2 minutes, right? And these 2 minutes on camera, no one has to see it. You do not have to publish it. This could be just something for you. And you can do this for over the course of, let's say, 30 days. And then what you may do is increase from 2 minutes to 5 minutes, right? Like, you don't have to start on phase 5, so the most like highest level of this habit. You can start off small and then build your way up. And that's how you start to attack your anxieties. That's how you start to attack the skill sets that you're looking to improve. So again, when it comes to anxiety, as an entrepreneur or a professional, it can actually show you what skills that you need to address or what problems you need to overcome. Main point number 3, and I gotta tell you guys, I actually have a bonus. Okay, so this is not the last one, and I want you guys to stay to the last one. And before I go over point number 3, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Not only would I appreciate it, but you will appreciate it too, because these are things that, again, I give in my therapy sessions. And my therapy sessions are not free. So you are getting free advice when in some cases other people are paying their hard-earned money for it. All right. So point number 3, anxiety has actually been scientifically proven to increase your performance. And I'll tell you guys the study that has done that. So the study that shows that anxiety actually is good for your performance is called Yerkes and Dodson's Law. And I want you guys to Google this and then just type or click on images, because what you're going to see is you're going to see a bell chart. Okay. And on the left side of this bell chart, it will show you performance. And then on the bottom of that bell chart, it will show you arousal. Now, what does this chart show? What does it say? Basically, what it says is that when your anxiety and your stress levels are low, your performance tends to be low. So think about it like this. If someone said, hey, I need you to write a 5-page paper, but you have 2 months to do it, do you think you're going to start that today? Probably not. But if someone said, hey, you have to write a 5-page paper and I need it by the end of the week, I think you'll probably start it, right? And the reason why is because the anxiety is there, the anxiety of a deadline. So again, when your anxiety is low, your performance tends to be low as well, because you don't feel there's a lot to lose. But here's the opposite side of that. When your anxiety is really, really high, your performance also tends to be very low. And this is what we know as choking. We see this a lot in sports, where someone is on a big stage and they're playing against a really great opportunity or a really great opponent, if you will, and they just shrink. They're given the ball and they lose it. They have a wide open shot and they miss it. And these are shots that they normally make. In other words, their performance is 10 times less than what it is during the regular season or during other moments, if you will. All right. This is what choking looks like. And it's when your anxiety is just too much. It's just too high. Now, there's this great spot when it comes to anxiety. So when it's not too high and when it's not too low, but when it's in the middle, you're actually able to perform at your highest level. And we see this with really great teams like, let's say, the Kansas City Chiefs or Tom Brady when he used to play with the Patriots, or even with the Bucks. These guys, they were really, really good. Their teams were awesome. And when they would go into the preseason, right, so the games that do not count against their record, when they would go into the preseason, it's not uncommon for them to lose to some of the sorriest teams in the league. And the reason why is because, one, they're not playing the whole game, but two, they're not preparing the same way that they would prepare for, let's say, the Super Bowl, right? And what I mean by that is they're not looking at what the coaches did in the previous game or the previous year. Like, they're not going through the game plan like that, all right? Not to the depth of what they would do during, let's say, the playoffs or, again, the Super Bowl. But when it is the Super Bowl, when it is the playoffs, not only are these guys playing the full game, but these guys are going through every play that they've seen this team run, probably within that whole, let's say, playoffs, or let's say the past few games, if you will, especially the games that they've lost, right? They're probably studying that film more than they would study the film for a team in the preseason. And the reason why is because, again, there's pressure here. No one wants to lose a Super Bowl. So as a result, they're able to perform at their highest level. And that's what mindfulness will actually do. Because for some people, what may seem like a stressful, a very anxiety-producing environment, for some, it's nothing. Someone like Tom Brady, who's been to the Super Bowl, I think, 10 times, if I'm not mistaken, hey, he's not going to sweat as much as the person that has never been there, and now they're being asked to lead their team to a win, right? Guys, think about this. Anxiety is actually good. Don't try to avoid it. All right, and again, there's proof, scientific study that would tell you that some anxiety is actually needed in your life. So stop trying to get rid of it and allow it to motivate you. Allow it to push you to perform at your highest level. All right, so this is the bonus one that I wanted to give you guys. I actually was not going to add this, but I said, you know what? For those people that make it to the end of this podcast, I want to reward them. And the best way is by giving you guys a bonus tip as to why anxiety is actually good for entrepreneurs and professionals. And this point It not only will help you with your performance, but more importantly, it'll help you with your happiness. And it's simple. Anxiety will actually show you what you deeply, deeply care about in life. And the reason why is because when we have things that we care about, one of the things that we don't want to happen to it is that we lose it, that we damage it, okay? Think about it like this. Actually, I'll give you a story if it's okay. So when I first got my first job, right? So I was working at a grocery store, and it was my 11th grade year. I remember I was working at this grocery store for about maybe like 4 months, okay? So right before school ended, and then up until the point where my basketball season started. I was working here. I was excited because I was getting paid. And one of the first things I did with my paycheck was I bought my first pair of Jordans. Now, if you're a sneakerhead, even if you're not a sneakerhead, but if you're somewhat of a sneakerhead, you know that Jordans are like, I mean, it's like Mount Everest, right? It's like the top of the top, the creme de la creme of sneakers. And when I was able to buy my first pair, it felt like, man, I felt like Jordan, to be honest, you know, like it was a really great feeling. And again, like I was someone who grew up, who sometimes didn't have enough money to buy shoes to go back to school. So there was one year, it was probably my 8th grade year. I remember going back to school with holes in my shoes while the rest of my friends had the brand new Nikes and the brand new Jordans. Think about how tough that was. That was very hard for me. So when I got this first pair of Jordans, guys, man, I took the best care of them. I took so much good care of them that it actually lasted me a few years because I wasn't wearing them. And whenever I did, I made sure to clean them. But it's because I cared about them. And because I cared about them, I was anxious and I was worried about getting them dirty. So I made sure I noticed everywhere that I stepped. That's what anxiety does. It illuminates what you deeply care about. Now, I know I'm talking about sneakers, but for you, this may be something else. Maybe this is something along the lines of, I don't know, let's say something with you and your couple, right? You and your spouse. Maybe you find yourself getting anxious when you present an opportunity to them, right? Maybe you're afraid of letting them down. Maybe you find yourself getting anxious when you're working in a team because you don't want to let your team down, right? I even had some therapists who come to see me for therapy, and they've told me that they feel anxious when they're working with new clients because they don't want to let them down. They feel as though this client has come to them and they're asking them for help, and they're in the position to help them. And if they don't do that, they'll feel like they've been a failure. Anxiety, guys, it's a superpower. And if you try to avoid it, you will lose that superpower. And in this example that I'm giving you, it actually serves as a roadmap. It shows us a roadmap to show you all the things that you care about. Because here's the thing, you wouldn't care about these things if you didn't have anxiety about them. And the opposite is true too. You wouldn't have anxiety about something if you didn't care about it. You know, I'll give you one more example and then I'll let you guys go. Man, being a parent. So for all my parents here, make sure you comment in the comments below. Just say, yeah, I can relate, or hey, I'm a parent. As a parent, that first day of dropping my son off at daycare was by far one of the toughest days. I mean, it was real tough for my wife. And the reason why it was so tough is because we're giving almost complete strangers one of the most precious, actually the precious thing that we have. And we're trusting them to take care of it. And we don't know how well they're going to do. It's just a matter of faith that we have to have with these people. But think about it, guys. Like, you're giving someone your kid, your most precious thing in the world, and you're asking them, you're pleading with them, please, I know you're busy. I know there's other kids here, but I really need you to watch after my kids specifically. And the reason why we're asking them that is because we care about our kid, right? I mean, man, I'll even say this. One of my friends, he's a therapist as well. And, you know, we had conversations about this. Like, for him, you know, he actually teared up when he dropped his son off. For me, man, I was very close. And that's not because I'm a macho guy or anything like that, but it was very, very trying. And that's what anxiety is like. Anxiety will show you what you care about. But here's the thing. You have to listen to it. You have to be open to it to be able to see the treasure that it brings. If not, you'll miss out on the superpower.